much for making a date on the marketplace, and welcome back. Now, Energy Minister John Peter Amewu has hinted that prospective indigenous oil marketing companies that will emerge successful after the bidding process for oil block allocation would be granted some discounts. According to the minister, the move is to ensure that Ghanaian businesses in the upstream sector benefit from the new oil blocks within the offshore Western Basin.
According to the Energy Minister, John Peter Amewu, capacity of investors in developing the block will be a key factor in determining successful outcomes. The ministry is encouraging medium local oil operators to form consolidations to beef up their financial position to be able to participate in the oil block tendering on October 5. At a workshop for indigenous Ghanaian companies, Peter Amewu expressed optimism that some indigenous companies will participate in the latest bidding round.
So those are reserved for negotiation. We expect locals to, of course, to participate. Nothing stops the locals also for participating in the competitive licensing round. So. And then the advantage again is for that 5% equity participation, which cuts across whether through negotiation or competitions, the locals can always play along that.
That's where they lack the capacity to develop those blocks. What would be the next option, or what is government trying to do?
You don't go into a venture when you don't have the capacity, and that is why this workshop is about. And so even when we say indigenization, Ghanaian content, Ghanaian participation, we expect them to come with some level of competence.
Though Ghanaians are encouraged to participate heavily, a level of expertise will be required. The minister disclosed that there could be some discounts to indigenous participants as compared with the international counterparts.
Again, if you don't do that, what it means is that you end up running a business at a very expensive rates. The cost element of inability to undertake prudent and effective measures is quite huge. So even when we say Ghanaian participation, they are coming out with some level of qualification, and that's what we're talking about. There may be some discount in terms of how you compete with the international bodies, but that competence level is required. Yeah.
The bid is expected to end by November 2019 for government to announce the winner. Abates Report for Joy Business.
The Social Security and National Insurance Trust, SNIT, says it is committed to saving the country an additional 12 million cedis from cleaning up the ghost names from the pension scheme before the end of the year. The trust had, at the end of August this year, deleted some 8,366 ghost names, amounting to a little above 18 million Ghana cedis. Speaking to Joy Business, Director General of the SNIT, Dr. John Ofori-Tinkrine, said the action has become necessary to reduce the monthly costs incurred by the scheme.
We've actually done quite a bit. I mean, you saw a publication, I think, not too long ago that we had saved about 18 million Ghana cedis from going out. It's an ongoing process. We are saving about 2.9 million Ghana cedis as I'm speaking to you every month. So by the end of the year, this number would have gone up another maybe 12 million. And then we would close our books and we'll say the next year that will be our baseline where we would be taking off from. It is an exercise that for me I think is very important because our scheme has matured and benefits costs, being a defined benefit scheme, the benefits cost is really going up, so we need to get a handle on it. So any waste needs to be curtailed. And we must do so with alacrity. Otherwise, the cost of, the sustainability of the trust starts to become a bit shaky. So we will keep an eye on it, and we'll make sure that the SNIT scheme, as we know it, is robust and is there to pay for benefits for generations yet to come.
Now, corporate and business executives now have the opportunity to go for business meetings without their laptops. This follows the successful introduction of the new Samsung Galaxy Note 9, which is designed for high-level performance, power, and has the intelligence that today's business executives require. Here's Head of Retail and Marketing at Samsung Ghana.
Samsung's Note series is the first in the Galaxy portfolio to receive industry's first smartphone innovations. The Galaxy Note 9 has been exclusively designed for users who demand the best out of technology. Here is Tete Akuno, head of retail and marketing at Samsung Ghana.
Note series is a niche market, so people, for power users, business users that need a device that's very productive. So that's why the big battery is very important. 4,000 milliamps, you can use it during the day, no issue. You don't have to worry about your battery going down when you need to do very important things. So our target market is really the power users, the achievers in the workspace.
He has also been defending the issue of pricing of Samsung products.
Premium devices come at a cost. You know, if you compare it to cars, you have your Mercedes compared to other brands. So we are a premium brand. So we give you the best in terms of quality, and it does come at a price. But what we try to do in any market we go is make sure that we are competitive in pricing. So we don't price it outrageously. It's competitive. You are getting value for what you are paying for.
Okay, but does it have anything to do with import duty and all those taxes on the products whilst importing them?
Obviously, yes. The taxes do affect the prices of the device. But like I said, what we are here to do as Samsung in Ghana is to make sure we support, to make sure when the price gets to the customer, it's still affordable and it's the best price you can pay for that device.
According to Samsung, the Note 9 will empower people through the combination of technology and lifestyle.
Let's now turn our attention to the aviation sector now. A Minister for Aviation, Kofi Adda, is hinting of plans to list government shares in the new home-based carrier on the Ghana Stock Exchange. Currently, the ministry is considering proposals from 3 airlines, Ethiopian Air, Air Mauritius and domestic carrier Africa World Airlines, to find a suitable partner to establish a new home-based carrier by the end of the year. Addressing the media after a tour of the Kotoka International Airport, the minister explained that the move would offer Ghanaians an opportunity to have a stake in the national asset.
In the past, when we had Ghana Airways, we had the Ghana Airways aircraft or system that was owned by Ghana alone, 100% government owned. But now we're looking at a different model. The model simply means that we have a number of investors come into partnership with the government of Ghana, that what we call home-based carrier. Not national carrier, home-based carrier. Home-based carrier means that the aircraft or the company that will be set up to be flying those aircraft will be based in Ghana. So if you put it in simple terms, it means the aircraft will be parked in Ghana because it's home for them. And then they'll be flying from here. Wherever they go for servicing or carrying passengers out will eventually come back to Ghana. What the government is doing, looking at the partnerships from a strategic point of view. The state cannot do everything on their own. We won't have all the resources to do that. But if we have strategic partners who also have funds that they want to invest into the home-based carrier, they're welcome to do that. We haven't fixed the percentages yet, but we're looking at something like what other countries have done, anywhere between some 10, 15, 20% to be owned by the state, and then the rest of it will be sold out to whoever wishes to invest. I think a good idea is to float some of those shares on the stock exchange, the Ghana Stock Exchange, where you and I can buy shares in there and we also own it. When we do that, then we have a board that represents all the stakeholders, and then they can meet and take policy decisions on business, and then make sure that we're efficient, that we get some returns on whatever investment we put in there. Dividends will be paid to the shareholders and so on and so forth.
All right, so this is indeed welcoming news for Ghanaians, especially when Ghanaians are now going to be made to own part of any new national carrier that comes up. But my colleague, Philip Namfuri, has just joined me in the studio here to answer some questions regarding this particular issue and other developments in the stock market. Now, Philip, what do you think about the decision by government to offload parts of its shares to Ghanaians?
Well, Emmanuel, I think it's a splendid decision. Anything that's pro-development, pro-Ghanaian, I think we should be part of it. And I remember back in the days when we used to sit on Ghana Airways DC-10, we used to travel a bit. That was on a personal level. It was fun to be sitting in a Ghanaian airline, Ghanaian pilots, Ghanaian flight attendants. So to give Ghanaians part of the financial growth of this new career that they want to put forth. I think is the best way to go.
Now, the new career is going to be based on a PPP with Government of Ghana owning some shares and the private sector taking in the other. Now, would it be that easy for a company that is formed under PPP arrangement to list, especially part of it, I mean, its side for government, to list on the stock market?
Well, generally speaking, listing is not an easy thing, and the world over, it's really a reason why a company will keep to themselves. And in our African context, you see a lot of businesses being owned by the people. They don't want to go to the stock exchange. Look at our market, for example. About 40 companies on the Ghana Stock Exchange, very small as compared to Nigeria, which has much more, South Africa, which has much more. So on that level, generally, listing is difficult because it comes with a number of requirements. You open up your books to more eyes and stuff like that. Okay. But from this perspective, from what I've gathered and what I've read so far, it is possible for them to list.
For them, meaning what?
Meaning this new company, this new carrier to list. But what will happen is that the portion of government's ownership will be given to the market for us to buy and sell or buy into. And you know, you need to come to an agreement with a private partner as to whether they are ready or not to list, because it's both of you. So government has plans, government has developmental aspirations, wants Ghanaians to own part.
Exactly.
The private partner may not necessarily have that development aspiration. It may have its profit-driven motive. So they will need to find a fine balance between that.
Which means that government of Ghana may not necessarily find it easy to list its shares on the market if the other partner doesn't, give out its consent, so to speak.
That would be the case, because it's an entity. One part cannot break out and go, unless you are breaking out to go from a new entity to go and list. But if you are together and there's a shareholding structure, you guys have to come to an agreement, that's shareholders, and see how best you can list and who wants to do what and stuff like that. So it's just a matter of communication. Come together, agree, and let's see how we're going about it.
So on what basis then is government, saying that to offload part of its shares to Ghanaians?
That's why initially I said government has developmental aspirations. Government is not a business entity. The private person is the business entity. They are in to make money and return value to their shareholders. Government is in businesses or gets into businesses to give us something. Yes, sometimes there's a profit-making motive, but ultimately there's a development aspiration of businesses. So that's why government will get into business ultimately. So they will need to find a fine balance between what the private person wants and what government wants.
All right, so indeed, if in fact there is a fine balance between the two, what duration are we looking at for government to actually list on the stock exchange?
For now, it will be very hard to say, because it's up to the work of investment bankers. They will look at the books, look at the numbers, and see if indeed a new company just coming into the market will have the sufficient financial wherewithal to list, because investors are looking to make returns. It's not a.
But normally, how long does it take a new company to list on the stock exchange?
It depends on the processes you are going through. The Ghana Stock Exchange will look at your books. The Securities and Exchange Commission, the regulator of the industry, will look at your books and see if you meet all the listing requirements. And it's a very tall order. You have to meet all the requirements. That's why a lot of companies don't go. And if you even read financial literature, that's finance books and stuff, you see that a lot of companies are a bit apprehensive when it comes to listing, because the process you need to go through, you have to get investment bankers, brokers, legals, and it keeps on going on and on. So sometimes people just want to avoid, and then it's quite costly, because when we're looking at MTN's IPO, you can see the cost they incurred in putting, even in marketing and advertising, and it's a lot of money. Yes.
Right. So Ghanaians may have that privilege to own part of the new airline, but it has to be based on so many conditions.
Exactly.
Except definitely it's not going to be short-term based.
No.
Right. Thank you very much. But let's move on to other issues now. And the Securities and Exchange Commission is to roll out an updated corporate governance to regulate structures of listed firms in the company. All right, so what exactly are you talking about?
Okay, so the Securities and Exchange Commission, that's the regulator of the capital markets. And capital markets, we mean where we buy long-term securities. So we're looking at bonds, we're looking at stocks. Now, in 2010, they came out with a corporate governance code, and it's titled Corporate Governance Guidelines on Best Practices. That was in the year 2010. And this was more of a principles-based approach to corporate governance. When I say principles-based, I mean it's either you comply or you explain. If you go to a country like America, there's what we call the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, where it's a rules-based approach. So either you comply with the provisions in the Sarbanes-Oxley Act or you go to jail. And this came up after the Enron scandal somewhere in the late 90s to the early 2000s. So our corporate governance code at that time, 2010, was principles-based.
So, okay, right.
Meaning that if you don't comply with it, you're supposed to explain the reasons why. There's no hard and fast, okay, so if you don't do this, you're going to serve this number of years in jail or something like that. It all depends on the commission's discretion. They may or may not impose sanctions on you, they may warn you or something of that sort. So, fast forward 2018, they have updated this corporate governance code, and they are going to more or less revise what was in the 2010 one and then put forward new things which were already in the 2010 one. So more or less just updating it and making sure that it is in conformity with current market trends.
So what are the broad areas that this code seeks to, to cover with regards to governance?
Okay, so it's a 24-page draft document, and we must stress on the draft part of it. It hasn't yet been finalized or been published. Now, it's 24 pages. It's broken down into 7 sections. The sections cover areas such as board of directors, the role of the board, shareholders, financial statements, financial controls, and general stuff. Penalties are in there also, and stuff like that. So that's broadly what it looks at, or what it is about.
And the specific areas that we are looking at?
Okay, so within some of the areas, I got some fine ones down. So for example, this was a very interesting part. There's what we call the whistleblower section. And whistleblower is somebody who would more or less smell a rat in a firm or a company and then bring it out into the public domain. So with the whistleblower, it says the board shall appoint a person to whom disclosures may be made in good faith by employees and others who have concerns that any behavior or activities of the company, its management or its employees or its agents may be improper. So this code is giving a framework or a structure for whistleblowers so that if there's anything untoward in the firm, you have an appropriate mechanism or some room to report management, to report your own staff, or to report the company as a whole to the board so that appropriate actions may be taken. So that's one part of it.
Okay.
There's another part that looks at the committees of the board. And if you read through the code, it talks about the fact that there should be a preponderance of non-executive or independent non-executive directors on boards of listed companies in Ghana. So for example, the audit board, and we know audit has come up a lot in this recent banking crisis. Audit committees in boards or on boards are supposed to be headed by non-executive independent directors for very obvious reasons, so that the person who is checking activities in the firm is somebody who is not part of the day-to-day running of a listed firm.
All right, now, in the draft report, have they cited any particular penalties or sanctions to be meted out to culpable companies?
So it says from this part, it says, in the event of a breach of this code, the Commission may impose a penalty of up to 300 penalty units or such greater amount, where the breach also involves a breach of requirements in the Act for which a higher penalty is imposed. And I'm stressing on the may impose. So I'm sure, reading from this, I'm not a lawyer, but reading from this, it may behove on the Securities and Exchange Commission, up to, as in like, it may be based on their own discretion, I beg your pardon, as to how they would impact or they would place penalties on firms if they are found wanting.
All right. Anything else we need to know about?
Well, essentially it's a draft, so we should wait and see if they'll add or subtract any stuff from it. And going forward, when it's published, firms have up to 1 year to comply with it.
All right, thank you very much, Philip Namfuri. And that was my colleague, Philip Namfuri, bringing us up to speed with some developments in the stock market and, of course, the Securities and Exchange regulations. Now, moving on, World Bank Country Director Henry Kerali says his outfit is working with the Ghana Highway Authority to restructure the road fund. He said the new plan will focus more on maintenance and operation of newly constructed roads in the country.
We do have a tourism project that has recently been approved, and we're hoping that that can provide some funds to expand the type of courses, the type of training being done at Kikam. They already have something similar here in Takoradi Technical Institute. They have a catering program, so maybe we can help Kikam also to develop that kind of thing. The other project that we are developing, of course, is artisanal mining, or galamsey, as you would call them here. So we know the environmental impacts that galamsey is having. So we are hoping that that project will also be approved before the end of the year. I should say actually in the medium term, not even long run. we're hoping to work with Ghana Highway Authority to restructure the road fund so that the focus of the road fund will be more on maintenance and operation of roads that have recently been constructed. Because if you don't maintain a road, it's only a matter of 5 to 10 years before it falls apart, and we don't want that to happen. There is already a road fund that exists in Ghana. We need to work with Ghana Highway Authority, with the National Road Fund, and with the government, Ministry of Finance and others, to redesign the way that the road fund works. But otherwise, in terms of repayments, the government is the, if you wish, I would use the phrase guarantor, okay? Because all of these loans are actually sovereign loans. They're soft loans, but sovereign loans to the government that will eventually have to pay.
Now, First Choice Hair and Beauty Salon has announced plans of expanding to all regions in Ghana as it marks its 20th anniversary. First Choice Hair and Beauty Salon is currently one of the biggest players in the local hair and beauty industry. Speaking to Joy Business at the 20th anniversary celebration, CEO and co-founder of the company, Faustina Adofo-Ajaga, explained the moving into all regions is part of the company's expansion agenda.
The 20 years anniversary celebration was marked with unique performances by seasoned gospel artists, including Neokai and the Tego Sisters. CEO of First Choice, Madam Faustina Adofo-Ajaga, said customers should expect branches in all regions in the near future.
What I would say is the sky is actually our limit. We always try to do something new, and I believe that by God on our side, we'll be able to get to where He wants us to get to. In fact, we love to expand all the time, and I mean, that is what we do at First Choice. So we are actually planning to go to all the regions, most of the regions.
First Choice Hair and Beauty Salon was established in 1997 to cater for the beauty industry. It offers diverse body and hair services, including spa treatments, nails, and cosmetics. The company has grown over the years with branches in Achimota and along the Spintex Road. In an interview, CEO of Lene Services, who was also the chairperson for the event, Dr. Helen Hagan hailed First Choice Beauty and Hair for their outstanding performance in the hair and beauty industry over the past 2 decades.
I believe it's an achievement in itself, because sustaining a business, growing it, observing corporate governance and making sure that there are structures in place, it takes a lot of skill and hard work. So I think it is, I know it's a big feat.
To wrap up the celebrations, 2 new products, the Sinak hairline and an FC magazine, were launched. Sheila Tamaklo for Joy Business.
And that's a wrap on the marketplace for today. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. Have a good afternoon.